whether direct or through equity markets. Capital transfer restriction, double taxation, regulatory fragmentation, stock exchange incompatibilities. These are policy choices, not economic laws. They can be reversed, and they must be reversed. Second, Africa's great national enterprises must open their ownership to African savings. African pension funds, sovereign wealth funds administer hundreds of billions of dollars. That capital exists. What is absent is the infrastructure to deploy it across borders into productive enterprises at continental scale. When companies list or open tranches to local institutional investors, they retain savings that currently drain our continent. The exchanges of Casablanca, Lagos, Nairobi, Abidjan, Kigali, or Joburg have an indispensable role. African savings must finance African growth. These SMEs face four structural obstacles we can no longer set aside: insufficient equity capital, with banks insisting on collateral these enterprises cannot furnish; a governance gap, as formalization requires deep transformation in management and planning; regulatory environment that penalize SME disproportionately; and finally, the generational transfer of wealth. The silent crisis of African entrepreneurship, past the second or third generation, the overwhelming of African family business vanish. This is not merely a family loss. It's an hemorrhage of economic capital, institutional memory, and employment that reverberates across the entire community. I direct an ambitious appeal to researchers, sociologists, business schools, and African international alike. Treat these as a serious domain of inquiry and research. The roots are as sociological as they are financial, family structure, inheritance norms, succession disputes. These dynamics must be embedded in our business school curricula so that the next generation inherits not just enterprises, but the capacity to sustain them. I want to say that our institution, IFC, will be transforming. We will be increasing our ability to mobilize international capital and domestic capital to address all these challenges. And the local champion for us are at the heart of our initiative. We have mobilized and invested $14 billion in 2025 in Africa, and we will continue doing that and accelerate that path. So now, let me conclude by saying the following. The talent is here, the capital exists, the ambition in this room is undeniable. What has been missing is execution at scale. The kind of scale that turns energy into factories, factories into jobs, and local enterprises into continental champions. This decade must be the one where Africa stops exporting its potential and starts delivering its performance. I need three things. First, commitment and concrete. Not a letter of intent, not another memorandum that collects dust in a drawer, an investment decision, a structured partnership, a first disbursement before the year is out. The time for deliberation is behind us. The time of action is now. Push back on us. Push back on us. If IFC, the institution that I lead, is not making it easy enough for you to enter a market, tell us. If our financial structure are too rigid, say so, and say it loudly. We are here to adapt to your reality, not the other way around. Our value is not being right. Our value is being useful. Let's play it on the long game. Emerging markets reward conviction and patience. Every investor who has built a durable position in Africa is one who refuses to retreat when volatility strikes. So let me say a last sentence before I end. Africa has never lacked potential. It has never lacked vision. What has too often been missing is a collective will to act. Together, now, without waiting for permission from history, that changes today. The arc bends not because the world wills it, but because we do. Africa is not a frontier market waiting to be discovered. This is a defining growth story of the 21st century. The question is no longer whether Africa can deliver at scale. The question is whether we will have the courage together to rise to the scale this moment demands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maktar. And I have to say, engaging with you through these years, and a lot of the people that I interview and companies that I interview, the big realization is that without the IFC's support, a lot of the projects that we see on the continent would not have happened. So the work that you're doing at the IFC and the IFC as a whole has been such an important part of the African growth story and mobilizing capital. And then importantly, such a big supporter of the Africa CEO Forum over the years. And without you and the IFC, a lot of what we see here today would not be possible. So please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Maktar Diop. Having you at the helm of the IFC has been an absolute blessing for all of us here in the room. So thank you, sir. I am honored now to welcome His Excellency, the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. So please join me for a fireside chat. Mr. President, an honor. Thank you, sir. Please take a seat. Fantastic to be back.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I always feel very welcome here, and it's interesting to come at this time in the world. I mean, we've seen so many cycles, but I have to say, possibly nothing like this has ever happened in the global economy. And I'm wondering how you are looking at not only the short-term trends, the long-term trends, but also, we know the old adage, within every crisis, there's always opportunity. And there's a lot of agency on the continent that we haven't seen before. So how are you weighing things up? And what do you think the moment calls for the African continent and for you in Rwanda?
Well, thank you, Eleni, and welcome to Kigali. But let me take this opportunity to welcome and thank each one of the leaders here, heads of state, vice presidents, prime ministers, senior executives of different industries. I want to welcome you to Kigali and thank you very much for honoring our invitation and being here with us. Of course, I want to thank Amir and his team, Jeune Afrique, for having thought of this idea to bring people together in this manner that has been operational for a number of years. I want to appreciate the work they are doing and also the comments Amir made earlier, which really encapsulate all that we need to say and maybe based on to do a number of things. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Now, back to the question. There will always be crises. I mean, you have had centuries of different things happening. We had slave trade, we had colonial times, then there are wars, then there are pandemics, then there are all kinds of things. They will happen all the time. We just, it's a matter of time, and there are these cycles that So we are in a different cycle now that is driven geopolitically, and we have to contend with that. But that also for Africa keeps being a reminder of our position. Where do we stand in this global positioning? And we have had many people contribute ideas and very accurately educating us what we need to do and what we need to be thinking about. But we can't stay there. We need to learn from this. We need to shape what we are doing for ourselves, and action should lead us in the right direction and how to deal with these crises. So, but for Africa, let me say, we have to leverage our competitive advantage, and there are a number of them. So why is Africa always at a disadvantage? When you look back, you see where Africa has been lacking this or that. But really, why, when we have almost everything? If you look at in the area of green energy, and this continent is home to 60% of solar potential. 60% is home to that. So Africa is home to that. Then if you look at the critical minerals that talked about, all of them, or the majority, are on the continent for making batteries and so on and so forth. And different powers are fighting over that. But Africa, that has a lot of that, is silent or losing most of it cheaply to those who have the power and know what they want to do. Look at human capital. In terms of human capital, Africa has abundance of that. In fact, whether maybe by now already or in a few years to come, Africa will be having the largest middle class in the world. So how can we have these resources? And then we are here wondering how to overcome some of the challenges that are brought by the geopolitics that we talk about, or the crises that we see happening in every. So we need to come together and do something about it. It's doing something about it. The rest we know. And Amir earlier on was talking about what we lose by not doing a number of things. I think we lose a lot more even by not doing what we have to do.
And it's a really important point. It's time of action. And I have to say, you know, when you mentioned pandemics, there was a wake-up call, and we've seen so much shift and change. But, you know, watching what's been going on with the way African leaders have been approaching bad deals that are getting on their table. I mean, Zimbabwe, Zambia, as well as Ghana, saying no to mineral deals because it was about extraction in return for healthcare programs and so forth. And frankly, I'm sure a lot of you in the room know that you've been very vocal about the kind of bullying tactics, the coercive tactics that have been used by the West, specifically the US. And at this point in time, we know that Africa is still being viewed as a place where people can extract. But African leaders are saying no. Also threats about sanctions consistently, not only against African nations, but other countries. Rwanda yourselves are dealing with US sanctions since March this year with the issue regarding the DRC. Take me through how you're dealing with this new geopolitical tension where there's a belief that might is right and the big can control, everyone else.
Well, it's a crisis in a sense, but brought about by the same thing, Africa not leveraging our capacity, our potential, our, energy of the people of our continent is just locked out there. And it's a situation where the powers that be are holding a whip in their hands. They're using a stick to beat up whoever they want to beat up in order to, they are no longer even hiding it. It's just in the open. It's like in the situation you're talking about, we have in the region of Congo and the other crises that also, in a way, involve Rwanda and other countries in our region. Yeah, sanctions, one has, first of all, are they justified? And it is not just in this case of Rwanda, but in other cases. Sometimes sanctions are just applied in a case of the one who provides less than the other. Yes, so it goes in the favor of the highest bidder. When somebody knows they will extract more from a certain place, they will be more favorable to that place, even if they are the ones in the wrong.
Do you believe that all roads lead to mineral deals? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it is in the open. I don't have to say much. And in some cases, it operates like in the very old days. There is a lot of cynicism in this. In the old days, the kings and so on and so forth used to give their in-laws, their children, powers, say, go and control something somewhere. And that's happening today here.
Yeah.
Yes, they just give somebody, say, go and get whatever you want to, and do whatever you want to do in that region. That is how Africa is treated. So these powers you see that come here lecturing people on democracy, human rights, and they are doing it with one arm, and the other, they are just taking away everything that people own. So, and this is what is critical. This is why Africa, leaders of Africa, some of whom are here, are brothers, and the CEOs and other Africans, I think we need to give ourselves value of some kind. We can't just be people who are waiting to be ripped off by somebody who is shrewd enough and has the power to come. No, we must be able to say no.
And we've seen those no's. We've seen some of those. I mean, do you believe, sanctions are used, a coercive method to get countries to capitulate. Are you going to capitulate?
I never capitulated in a war situation. This is not a bad situation as such. Well, it hurts, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what it is meant to do. It is meant, sanctions or different measures are meant to hurt people. So in a way, we are hurt. But I think we would be hurt more by not doing what we are doing. So it's always, you make a calculation. Yes. So, and it is not so difficult to say no. In fact, it costs more to say yes to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So we are here, but all these things come to pass in one form or another. Even those who have been given the gift of messing us up, one day they will not live long enough to see the gains from exploiting people or doing unjust things. So I think each one of us, countries in Africa, and mainly and most importantly together, there is a lot we can do to raise Africa, to raise ourselves to the level where it should be, and don't mind about these powers that think they own the world and heaven and everything else.
And I hear you loud and clear on the hypocrisy and the contradiction in terms of where international law applies to some when it suits and it's broken in other cases. We've seen so much of this. In a world where we're seeing the unraveling of the global world order as we know it, institutions are being challenged, they're being broken down. What is Africa's role, do you think, in this new world? Because it feels like it's never going to be the same again.
You know, my view is that these pressures that we get from the rest of the world, Africa, I think, is being reminded to wake up. So the pressures are not entirely bad. I think they force Africa to look within for what we have, to actually do what we need to do, to find a good place for us in this world of those injustices and other challenges. So Africa, looking within, and we have a lot to bring to bear on dealing with these challenges, I think we can succeed. But above all, we need to work together and move away from saying what we know, because there is a lot we know and there is a lot we talk about, but we need to do a lot more based on that.
The private sector, I want to talk about scaling up or failing. You engage a lot with the private sector. Rwanda is such a prime example of incredible, I mean, we cover so many stories here. I mean, you're just seeing like hotbed of fantastic growth. But where do you think the private sector is going wrong from breaching that level and becoming African champions and really, truly scaling up?
I think private sector is doing a good job. In fact, it is ahead of the public sector. But we could be served much better by finding a way to bring close private sector and the public sector and benefiting each other as one, because that's what we are actually one when you look at the needs of the continent. And so I want to thank the private sector. The private sector, they are actually, to some level, hustlers. They are able to go through some of the barriers that are created by the public sector.
Yeah.
But if those barriers were not there, the private sector would be far ahead of where they are, and along with that, the continent also would be ahead of where we are. So my call to all of us is for really coming together, the private sector, the ways of how they could conduct business, I think, have been very elaborately put by Amir in the presentation you had with him earlier. And those of us in the public sector need to fine-tune our responsibilities towards allowing the private sector to be the engine that they are and should be, and all of us would benefit.
I think His Excellency just gave all of you a compliment. He called you hustlers. He says you're the, doing things better than the pipe. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. Mr. President, you're so, so encouraging always. I've got one other question, and I want to talk about, when I wake up in the morning and I have to check, can you believe social media to get an understanding of what leaders are thinking? And a lot of the time, it lacks decorum, it's shocking. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah, I don't have to say it. What do you think of the way global leaders, the strongest leaders on this planet, are speaking right now? I'm sure do you wake up and check what people are saying? I mean, on social media? Do you get shocked? What shocked you the most? There's a lot.
I have become immunized to shocks. But social media is very interesting. It brings equality in some sense of presentation of ideas and feelings, and it has really, media has been democratized. I think it is important. Everyone can express themselves and they will be heard. If you are wrong, there will be somebody to tell you, you say, no, that's not right. And when it is right, then people will say, wait a minute, I think there is a point here that we should be thinking about. So it has been so open that we have gone beyond having this narrow sense of being guided into things without sometimes thinking, or we are conditioned to believing even what is not right just because it has been said by somebody in the media. So it has sort of opened up space for everybody. So some of us also follow, and it's up to any individual to scan and try and make a sense of what you've heard, you are seeing, and it is a good way. You receive criticism, you receive advice, and so it remains the responsibility of any individual to decide how they build on that and benefit.
You didn't answer my question about the shock factor. Are you shocked by some of the things you see?
I'm not. I said I've been immunized.
Immunized.
I'm not shocked about. I understand where the world we live in.
Yeah, it's changed, right? It's completely different.
Yeah, for the 30-something years of my life, in the last 30 years, if you look at, I think, we come to understand there will be things that would otherwise be shocking, but they don't shock because we have been there.
That's true. Mr. President, final word. What do you want people to walk away with from this forum as we say goodbye?
Well, always it's a good opportunity, but I want people to know that each one of the people in this room and beyond have something to contribute and to benefit from, and benefit each other, and the continent has a lot that is not being put to good use, and it is up to us. It's not people from anywhere else to be able to raise ourselves to that level where we should be.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank His Excellency the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. What an honor to speak to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Always inspirational, always insightful. And by now, a lot of you will know that I've been advocating for you guys to stay a couple more days. You need to go and see the gorillas. Has anybody done that? Only 4 of you? You need to book it right now. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a presidential panel at 5:30 p.m. this afternoon. Please join us for that session. President Kagame and other heads of state will be joining for that, so we'll get more insights later on in the day. In the meantime, I want to call up someone I respect dearly, and a big honor to welcome an African industrialist, a Nigerian industrialist, a visionary, Abdul Samad Rabiu, chairman of the Boer Group. So, please join me on stage.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the already established protocol in the interest of time and given the truly distinguished gathering before us. We meet at a time when the global economic order is being reshaped in real time. Geopolitical tensions, shifting alliances, and reconfigured supply chains are redefining how the world produces and trades. And in this reshaping, Africa is no longer marginal. The question is no longer whether Africa matters. The question is whether Africa is ready to act at scale. Africa's next phase of transformation hinges on 5 transformations: capital, policy, infrastructure, value addition, and integration. Capital to finance ambition, policy to enable execution, infrastructure, the foundation of growth, value addition to unlock the full value of our resources, and integration to unlock scale. Let me start with capital. Across the continent, institutional capital is expanding. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance pools, and increasingly sophisticated private investment vehicles. Yet, infrastructure financing remains far below potential. The reality is clear. Africa is not short of capital. It is short of coordinated mobile capital deployed at scale. We must unlock cross-border capital flows, harmonize investment frameworks, strengthen project preparation, and expand risk-sharing mechanisms that attract both domestic and global investment. Deepening capital markets is equally critical. Cross-border listings, interoperable settlement systems, and expanded local currency trade are not merely technical reforms. They are strategic infrastructure. Financial independence begins with financial integration. But capital alone does not build economies. Policy determines whether capital becomes truly productive. Across many regions, segmented legal frameworks, overlapping approvals, and inconsistent enforcement continue to raise the cost of investment in Africa. These are structural constraints on growth. What is required is clear and transparent rules, predictable enforcement, and coordinated industrial strategy across borders. Alignment does not compromise independence. Rather, it strengthens economic performance. The 21st century will not reward detached brilliance, but coordinated execution. Third, infrastructure, because no economy can industrialize without the systems that power growth. Reliable energy, efficient ports, modern rail networks, quality roads, and digital connectivity are critical to reducing costs, improving productivity, and connecting African markets. Value addition, my favorite. Africa is rich in resources, yet too often sends them abroad unprocessed, along with the jobs, skills, and value that belong here at home in Africa. This must change. Why export iron ore when we can export steel? Africa sits on over 20% of the world's iron ore reserves, and the quality, as we all know, is between 64 and 67 Fe, iron content, which is the highest anywhere in the world. Why export crude oil when we can power industrial ecosystems? Industrialization is no longer aspirational. It is a necessity. Nigeria's transition from cement importer to net exporter proves what disciplined policy, sustained investment, and local capability can achieve. 15, 20 years ago, Nigeria was importing over 90% of the cement that it was consuming. And then there was a deliberate policy. And today, Nigeria is producing over 50 million tons of cement with an installed capacity of 65 million tons. And I'm happy to say that Bua Cement is part of that change with an installed capacity of 17 million tons per annum, getting to 20 million tons by next year, 2027. Again, global disruptions in energy and supply chains have reinforced a simple truth. Economies with domestic processing capacity are more resilient in times of shock. The current situation in the Middle East underscores the importance of local value addition and self-sufficiency. Nigeria offers a strong African example. With the new refining capacity, Nigeria is strengthening its energy security while also supporting supply stability across parts of Africa. This is the path forward, building resilience through domestic capacity and value addition across our continent. This is not only about growth, it is about resilience. Take cocoa, for example. We all know that a handful of African countries produce the majority global supply of cocoa. Yet, the continent captures only a fraction of a market that is worth over $200 billion annually. These countries, 4 countries in fact, in West Africa, they produce 75% of the entire global supply. But Africa gets only maybe about 15% of that, because most of the value is created elsewhere, in processing, manufacturing, branding, and distribution. This is a structural value chain gap. The same pattern repeats across minerals and other commodities. Amir, am I running out of time? Okay. Thank you. Africa has over 30% of the world's minerals, but adds little value. So when raw materials leave without transformation, value lives with them. So if Africa is to grow at scale, it must shift from commodity exports to integrated industrial value chains. Value addition is the pathway to jobs, technology transfer, and long-term resilience. Ultimately, integration is what turns potential to scale. And at the center of this effort is the African Continental Free Trade Area, a market of over 1.4 billion people across 54 countries, one of the most ambitious integration efforts in the world. Its promise is clear: intra-African trade, regional value chains, and industrial scale that no single economy can achieve alone. But potential does not deliver outcomes. execution does. At BOA Group, as we expanded our regional investments, we actively sought to supply several African markets under the AFCFTA framework. While some countries embraced the spirit of the agreement, others were less supportive in practice, with administrative barriers and legacy import structures limiting our ability to participate fully in regional trade. So really, AFCFTA is not working as it should, because I had a personal experience in one of the countries that we tried to penetrate. We were actually frustrated. I reported that to my brother, Mele, and he's trying to do something about that. So this highlights a central reality that while the framework exists, implementation remains uneven. Same about free trade movement of people in Africa. And again, I had a personal experience. Last year, February 2025, I was traveling to Cape Town for the Mining Indaba in South Africa. And as we landed, and it was a red eye, so I left at night from Lagos to Cape Town. We arrived at 6 in the morning, and as we arrived, we went to the immigration, attended my passport. The immigration officer looked at it, and he was like, "Why is your visa?" And I said, "My visa is there." Unknown to me, my visa had expired the day before. And what happened? Unfortunately, our crew did not check the visas to ensure that the visas were valid. We were there for 4 hours, but at the end of the day, I had to turn back. I was turned back to Lagos. But the issue is, while we were waiting, to see whether we'd be able to get access into the country without a visa, there were like 3 international flights from Europe. All the 3 flights were mostly Europeans. I was standing there by the immigration desk, and each and every passenger on those 3 flights went into Cape Town without any visa at all. I do not have a problem with the fact that I was there without a visa and I was returned. I took full responsibility of that. I had an issue being an African in Africa, being turned away because I do not have a visa, and foreigners from other continents were coming in and were allowed to enter without a visa. This must change. So frameworks like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement provide the foundation, but impact will come from what you build on top of them. Industrial corridors linking production hubs, digital customs systems reducing border friction, efficient ports and logistics networks, and cross-border energy infrastructure. Integration must come from declaration to real economic reality. Your Excellencies, Africa does not lack ambition. What it has lacked is coordinated execution at scale. The next decade will not be defined by detached progress, but by system-level transformation. The question is no longer whether Africa can grow. It is whether Africa can grow as one integrated economic system. Let us move forward. Let us move beyond frameworks into functioning systems. Let us ensure capital flows efficiently, industry scales across borders, and trade moves seamlessly. Because history will not judge us by the speeches we deliver. It will judge us by the systems we build and whether they enabled Africa to rise at scale. The moment is here. The choice is ours. And the time is now. Africa at scale is not an aspiration. It is a decision. Thank you.
Samad, thank you so very much. Brilliant to hear from you. We are about to start our next session. We're just doing a little bit of a stage change. In the meantime, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Eleni Giarkos. I'm an anchor and correspondent at CNN International. If you miss CNN, there's a massive screen in front of the pool area. So if you think you're going to relax at the pool, you get to watch breaking news at the same time. And we know the current state of the world. I also have a show called Connecting Africa. We focus on intra-Africa trade, the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. I have to say, a lot of the people in this room, I've had the opportunity to interview and feature on my show, and I'm so grateful for all your input. It's so important to tell the African economic story at this point in time when the world is so fundamentally changing. And let's be honest, countries around the world are trying to diversify. And we've discussed this for so many years, that the continent is the most important economic frontier for the future. And we've already ascertained we're going to be signing better deals. So very excited about that. In the meantime, I'm honored to welcome Jennifer Sapasacha. She is the Chief Africa Correspondent at Bloomberg TV, and she's also an anchor, and I respect her enormously. I'm quite a fan. So Jennifer, join us.
Thanks for that. Thanks so much, Eleni. Hello, everyone. And yes, as Eleni was saying, there is still quite a bit to discuss, and it's my pleasure to have a group of panelists joining me in just a few minutes to dig into some of these themes that we've been hearing a number of our speakers this morning talk about. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome them up to the stage. First, His Excellency Abdullah Al-Musaibi, the President of the Arab Bank for the Economic Development in Africa. We also have Ethiopios Tafara, Regional Vice President for Africa at the IFC. Jean-Pascal Tricoire, Chairman for Schneider Electric. Hi. And finally, Mary Ann Musangi, Managing Director of HECO Industries. Please welcome my panelists on stage. Thanks so much. So thank you all so much for being here. We have throughout the morning been hearing quite extensively about this idea of shared interest and shared value and shared ownership. But before we get into really the practicality of how that works, and I do want to speak to each of you in your respective sectors how that would work, I thought just to continue what we've been hearing, it's important to talk about where we are right now. And Ethiopios, I was hoping you would be the one to kick us off, especially as the private sector arm of the World Bank. Can you talk about how what we're seeing with the fraying of multilateralism, the scaling back of aid, the rechanneling of capital, how is that affecting the mandate that the IFC has? Is it affecting the mandate? Oh, the mic's right here.
I think the mandate is actually all the more relevant in the current context for two reasons. I think on the one hand, we still have collective action problems that require collective action. Just look at what's going on with respect to the hantavirus, right? This is a problem that's going to require a multilateral solution. And the same is true with climate change, the same is true with migration. So I think multilateralism remains a very important vehicle for addressing the challenges that the world faces. But also, you know, we've heard about this renewed approach involving the pursuit of national interests. And you have a number of different national interests that come to bear. Somebody has got to find the common ground, right? And this is where I think institutions like the IFC, like the World Bank, remain relevant, to find the common ground among those national interests that are being pursued on the continent. So, yes, we are, as President Kagame has noted, in a world of geopolitical shifts, but I think institutions like ours are going to help navigate those shifts because collective action remains important, and because national interests, you've got to find common ground among them.
Thanks for that. Jean-Pascal, I'd love for you to weigh in from a private sector perspective. We're seeing this fraying of multilateralism really playing out in your sector with energy. Give us your pulse for how that is playing, how it's been playing out over the past few weeks and months.
Well, first, many thanks for having me here, having us here. Thanks to President Kagame for hosting this conference, and to Jeune Afrique and this CEO, to Associate Schneider. But for us, we've been for many years working on the continent, and we are really engaged on 3 priorities for scaling. The first one is more energy for the continent. The second one that shouldn't be neglected is more digital, more data centers. Right. And the third one is more local production, more local industry. But I think the mother of all resolution is more energy. So as a company, we support all energies. Of course, we support nuclear, we support oil and gas, and we support on the continent the largest installation, pipelines, extraction, more so refineries. But the revolution of our time, what's happening at the moment, is the electrification of the world. It's about technology, it's about electric mobility, it's about more electricity in buildings, more AC as countries develop. So we see here the priority to develop more electrification. And what's needed here is to open up the game to all the solutions, because technology is moving very fast. Before it was fossil, centralized. Now it's a lot of decentralized, a lot of renewable. There are a lot of actors who want to develop more energy. So we need simpler policies so that more energy can be developed. We need more grids, and we serve that. We need more smart grids, and today we do the largest and the smartest grid in Africa as Schneider. And we need to develop the human capital to deploy all of those technologies.
Thank you. Marianne, please jump in from a company perspective and a so-called SME perspective on the ground. Has this recent crisis that we've seen, has that made this shared collective action and doubling down of continuity and shared value even more relevant for your businesses?
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm the SME that Mactar Diop talked about. I'm the hustler that His Excellency talked about. And I represent the women in the room to be the first one on stage today. I run a manufacturing company, started off in Kenya. It's a family business, started in 1974 by my father, Dr. Chris Kirubi. I am second generation. We started off the business through licensing agreements. Our biggest brand was Bic Pens, which we manufactured until 2018, when Bic decided that they are not going to renew their license to us again. This was 70% of our business. Overnight, we lost that revenue. We had to divert. We had to reinvent ourselves. And one thing we realized is we cannot be relying on other people's agenda. When you look at multinationals, Africa is merely 2 to 5% of their total global revenues. So when they make decisions in the US, in Dubai, in other markets, they don't even ask Africa what it means for them. So we reinvented, we created our own brands, we manufacture personal care, hair care products, of which we source all our natural oils from the continent of Africa. Our vision is an Africa-wide vision. So not only do we sell in the African continent, but we also source as much of our raw materials within the African continent. We buy jojoba oil from Egypt. We buy argan oil from Tunisia. We buy cocoa butter, shea butter from Uganda, from Ghana. We support local economies because if we add value to that agricultural chain, as was said earlier by the speaker before, it only grows Africa. With the crisis that is currently happening now, we have to remain agile. And because we are sourcing from our own continent, it means that the impact that we have faced over the last couple of months since February has not been that dramatic. Through COVID, it wasn't that dramatic. We were able to sustain ourselves, and that's the importance of relying on Africa, making sure that we are self-sustaining as a continent.
Thank you, Marianne. That was great. Your Excellency, I'd like, as the development finance institution of the panelists, what do you see the role of Badia in supporting and enabling some of the shared collective growth that we're talking about?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Rwanda and His Excellency the President for the hospitality and the warm welcoming in Rwanda. As a development agency, let me first give you a brief about Badia. Badia established in 1974 by the Arab League, and our mandate is to bring the Arab capital into Africa and also move the capitals between the African countries. And for that, we work in 4 pillars: private sector, trade finance, public sector, and grant and technical assistance. And as an development institute, we have a group called the Arab Coordination Group. It consists of 10 Arab development institutes, and we work together all over the world. But in my case, as a Badia, as an institute work in Africa, we coordinate with them to bring capitals and to work with a big project in Africa. And as a Badia, my role is to see what Africa needs and how we can help them. And we have many ways to help them, but the main idea that if I entered in any project, I will bring with me every dollar I put, I will bring $4 to $5 or maybe sometimes $6 in this project. So our main purpose is to find the right projects and bring our sister institute to invest and to bring the capitals from the Arab world to Africa.
Let me ask, has that changed or needed to evolve a bit since February?
Well, of course it's changed. Now Africa needs more. We have to put more money because we have to give them, as you know, they need fuel, fertilizers, these important things. Most of it comes from the Gulf region. And as you know, the Gulf region is now closed and it's just start working. Yeah. So they need, as an area they closed, they need to buy from other places. And we have to help them and supply them with money to bring these commodities and fuel and fertilizer to Africa so they can manage until the prices goes down. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Jean-Pascal, jump in here because there really is an opportunity when we talk about this shared interest and value on the energy side, as you were alluding to. Schneider is a global company and has at least tried to do this elsewhere. Are you replicating any models that you've done maybe in Asia and bringing that here to Africa when we think about this collective action?
We are not trying to replicate, but we are learning from other experiences, right? It happens we are a little bit unusual in the sense that our second largest market in the world after the US is China. And the third one is India. And I had the privilege personally to be part of the small team that started both operations. What I can see is that in both of those operations, what we do is largely specific because the ecosystem, the technology is different, are different. The culture of developing business is different. I happened also to be working in Africa 25 years ago, and I created most of the offices here in sub-Saharan Africa. And my engagement with the teams here, with our local teams, is to say, think really local. And think according to the priorities of the place and the way of doing. And we're going to develop technologies. Some of them will be international if they adapt, but the priority will be to deploy local technologies in Africa, for Africa, with local partners. And when we speak about local industrialization, our priority is not to do by ourselves. We have factories on the continent. But it's more so to work together with partners so that they can develop their local production, their local engineering, their local project management. That's how we work in China, in India, and how we work here in Africa, in the multiple countries where we are.
What does that mean for the partners that you're looking for, especially when you think about maximizing the value regionally, not just at the local level?
Look, I don't think you can do anything alone. We are by nature, we are a tech company. But that tech is only a minimal value of the systems we are providing, like the largest data centers in the world, or the largest refineries, or the electrical grids, and so on. So what we want is to collaborate with local actors so that we innovate together, we co-innovate, and we put at their disposal all the stacks of innovation, from products to control systems to software to AI modules, so that they can be developed really here according to the specificities of the country. I think there is one point we shouldn't miss, but I don't want to start talking about it because then I will.
You can talk about it really quick.
Data centers. So I'll come back to that afterwards if you give me the opportunity.
You just wanted to say data centers.
More data centers. This is what I wanted to say.
Well, and we can come back to that in a bit, because that really does require energy, as you were mentioning, but also a number of partners in order to actually galvanize the capital to make it happen and to actually get things off the ground. Ethiopius, jump in here, because this shared value as a concept is one thing. Practically speaking, are we seeing it successfully working on the continent? I mean, I think of Lobito Corridor potentially as an example of one, but when we think about the private sector, what is a model that maybe we should look to?
So I actually think the shared opportunity we have is the demographics on the continent. We have both the workforce of the future as well as the marketplace of the future. Right? The numbers are quite telling. And I think the shared opportunity for us is creating jobs for this demographic, both because they are going to be the workforce, but also because it gives them the means to actually be a marketplace worth pursuing. And as Jean-Pascal has said, energy is critical to that, right? So we have to look at what is foundational to job creation. And without energy, there is no development. And we have to think about it not simply in terms of electrification of individuals, but also power to industry. But then the other thing you need to think about, and you're alluding to this, as you're creating jobs, you need to be able to connect people and businesses to markets and markets to markets. And that requires physical infrastructure, like the Lobito Corridor, like the ports we're working on, like airports, but also digital infrastructure. Because today, when you get connected to the world, to markets, it requires a digital connection. And then I think we really should be focusing on those sectors that are going to create jobs. For us, a huge part of the shared opportunity that we're going to be pursuing with the private sector is around agriculture. Some of it's going to be around SME finance, given that 80 to 90% of jobs in any marketplace are created by SMEs. Critical minerals and mining, obviously an area of keen interest. Health and tourism, and then value-add manufacturing. But as Jean-Pascal has said, all of this can't be pursued by us alone. We really need partners, like the partners we have on this dais here, and like many of the people in this room. This is something that's going to require, again, a collective effort. We're looking for people to help us to take advantage of what we see as a shared opportunity when it comes to the African demographic.
Marianne, as the SME here again, I'm sorry to keep alluding to that, but Ethiopius is talking there about the opportunity for different sectors. Agriculture obviously touches potentially some of the sectors that you are a part of. Are you able to access some of the capital that is being channeled to some of these projects? How are you finding it from your perspective? What are the challenges maybe, and how do we move forward from that?
Before I respond to accessing capital, let me just say thank you to Schneider, and because The cost of power in Egypt is 0.03 cents. The cost of power in Kenya is 0.18 US cents, which makes it very difficult for the Kenyan market to be able to compete in manufacturing or in any other sector that requires energy with countries such as Egypt. So just stabilizing those costs really will help economies grow. Now, moving to capital, there's no shortage of capital, as has been said earlier, and we've heard it before.
senga ndi kumwe n'ikipe ngari turi buze gukorana kugira ngo guturuka kuri iyi saha kugera ku isaha y'isa 5 tuze kubaha amakuru ahagije ku ngingo zigiye zitandukanye, tuze kureba ibyo mu gihugu mw'imbere mu Rwanda, hanyuma tuze kureba mu karere. Hari byinshi cyane biri kuvugwa cyane cyane muri Repubulika ya Demokarasi ya Kongo. Ahangaha haravugwa cyane kuba iki gihugu cyaba kiri gukora ibishoboka byose kugira ngo kigaragaze imbaraga mu bigendanye n'amafaranga. Aya mafaranga ariyo bakoresha cyane cyane muri lobby Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika. Hakaba hanasohotse nk'ubushakashatsi cyangwa se study igaragaza yuko Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika, ubutegetsi bwa Donald Trump ari bumwe mu burya ruswa ku isi, ariko imwe muri ruswa ya mbere yabiribwa muri Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika bituruka muri Repubulika ya Demokarasi ya Kongo. Ese bihurira hehe n'ibyo tubona ahangaha byo kwirengagiza iyubahirizwa ry'amasezerano iki gihugu gisinyana n'impande biba biri kumwe muri aya masezerano yo gushaka amahoro mu burasirazuba bwa Repubulika ya Demokarasi ya Kongo? Tuze no kongera turebe ariko nanone muri Afurika muri rusange, inzinduko z'umukuru w'igihugu. Hari hateguwe uruzinduko rwo kujya muri Botswana, ndetse hari n'uruzinduko rwa Perezida Paul Kagame muri igihugu cya Tanzania. Bisobanuye iki ku mubano w'igihugu cy'u Rwanda n'ibyo bihugu, cyane cyane nka Tanzania yo muri aka karere, mu gihe u Rwanda bavuga yuko bamwe mu bashaka kubibonera muri iyo ndorerwamo bavuga yuko rubanye nabi n'ibihugu byose mu karere uretse wenda Uganda ndetse na Kenya, ariko abandi baturanyi bose ntibaba barebana ijisho ryiza. Ariko se uru ruzinduko rwaba rusobanuye iki, ndetse yemwe ubigereranyije n'ibyo bivugwa bya bisobanuye iki? Turareba mu butabera hano mu Rwanda abatawe muri yombi barimo abakora ku muyoboro wa YouTube witwa Imbarutso ya Demokarasi. Hanyuma ariko nanone turi buze no kujya mu nkomane ya Hormuz